All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a viral video that's been making waves. It's all about a recent Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, and it claims this was a total game changer for Donald Trump. But what's the story behind these really dramatic claims? Let's break down the narrative this video is pushing, step by step, so we can all understand exactly what it's arguing and why.
Okay, so the video kicks things off with some serious drama. It paints this picture of a legal team that's just been stunned into silence, suggesting a Supreme Court ruling so devastating that it just completely paralyzed them and brought their entire strategy to a screeching halt. And the whole reason for that drama? Well, it all comes down to this one number, 9-0. The source makes a huge deal out of the fact that this was a unanimous decision. Yeah, that means every single justice, including the 3 he put on the court himself, ruled against him on this. So you got to ask, how on earth did that happen?
Well, according to the source, the answer isn't in the public record. It claims the real story, the reason for that 9-0 vote, is hidden away in 2 key documents, the ones that tell the story that was happening behind the scenes.
Okay, first up, we've got this sealed 47-page classified appendix. So while you and I can go online and read the public ruling, this thing is supposedly top secret, eyes only. And the video's big claim that this appendix is packed with evidence so damaging it was a key factor in getting all 9 justices on the exact same page.
And the other piece of the puzzle, according to this video, was a classified Department of Justice briefing on national security. The story goes that this was the moment that really sealed the deal. Whatever the justices were shown in that briefing, it was enough to flip anyone who might have been on the fence and lock in that unanimous vote.
So this video isn't just saying this was a bad day in court. No, it's arguing this whole thing was a trap, and it was set very, very carefully. The narrative is that 5 specific legal blunders led straight to this outcome.
And these weren't just random oopsies, according to the source. They were steps, one after another, that supposedly built this legal cage around the defense team. And with this ruling, well, the door just slammed shut. So, mistake number 1? A huge miscalculation, apparently. The legal team thought the Supreme Court's 11-month silence meant they were seriously considering the immunity argument. But the video claims they were dead wrong. That silence wasn't deliberation. It was the sound of a unanimous consensus forming against them. Okay, now this next part, this is straight out of a movie. The video alleges there's a secret witness with the codename Executive 1 Assistant, who gave prosecutors, get this, 917 pages of handwritten notes. Notes that supposedly just blow Trump's entire story out of the water. Mistake number 3, according to the source, was all about ignoring the fine print, and it had massive consequences. See, the ruling says it applies to state courts too, and that one little detail, the video argues, was like a domino. It instantly knocked over the immunity defense in that big racketeering case down in Georgia. And it wasn't just criminal cases. The source claims this ruling opened up the financial floodgates. With immunity appeals off the table, over $500 million in civil judgments that were on pause are now active again. And that means asset seizures could potentially start happening, a huge financial hit. And finally, the video lays out what it calls 3 failed escape routes, basically last-ditch efforts that went nowhere. An emergency request was shot down in just 4 hours. Another legal argument was, get this, taken apart inside the ruling itself, and a final Hail Mary play has reportedly led to lawyers just quitting the team. Okay, so beyond all the drama, what does this ruling actually do? Why does it matter so much? According to the source, it's not just one thing. It's 5 key passages that completely redraw the legal map for any former president. And it starts with this quote right here from page 23 of the ruling. The key words, no person, stands above the reach of criminal law. The video's take is simple. That sentence right there is the end of absolute presidential immunity for private actions, period. Next up, the video claims the court created something new, a reckless disregard standard. And this is a really big deal. It means prosecutors might not have to prove a president meant to break the law. They just have to prove he ignored obvious warnings that what he was doing was illegal. You can see how that lowers the bar for getting a conviction, right? And here's the third huge change, according to the source. It's about applying something called the crime-fraud exception to the presidency. So, you know how a president's conversations with advisors are usually protected? Well, this ruling supposedly says, not anymore. If those conversations were about planning a crime, then that protection just vanishes. The source also describes this as a legal catch-22, a real trap for the defense. Think about it. To claim a document is protected by executive privilege, you have to hand it over to a judge to review. But what if that document contains evidence of a crime? Well, then the privilege is gone, and the document you were trying to protect just became evidence against you. It's a lose-lose.
Okay, so you've got all these legal changes. How does that actually play out in the real world? Well, the source argues that when you put it all on a calendar, you get what it calls a collision course, a legal catastrophe that just keeps compounding.
And this timeline is really the heart of that collision course argument. The point the video makes isn't just that there's a lot going on, it's that everything is connected. It's a chain reaction. Evidence from the February deadline could blow up the March trial date. That, in turn, could impact the asset seizures just a couple weeks later. Each event, it argues, just feeds the next one, creating this downward spiral.
All right, so let's round this out by looking at how the video presents the other side of the coin, the defense's main arguments, how the source tries to knock them down, and the big picture futures it lays out for all of us.
So the first big defense argument it highlights is that this is all just a political prosecution. The video's counterargument is basically this. It's not the prosecution that's unprecedented, it's the conduct that led to it. And to prove that, it points to testimony from fellow Republicans. The second argument it tackles is the idea that the Supreme Court is biased. And the source's rebuttal here is pretty straightforward. It just asks a question. If the court is so biased, then why did the 3 justices Trump himself appointed vote against him? It's a tough question to answer. And this brings us to the end, where the source lays out what it sees as 3 possible futures for America, depending on how this all shakes out. Option 1, accountability. The system works and a precedent is set that nobody is above the law. Option 2, the system fails. The cases get tossed, and the precedent is that if you're powerful enough, you can get away with it. And option 3, fracture. The courts can't agree, and people lose all faith in the law as a neutral playing field.
And so the whole thing wraps up with this one big, provocative question for the audience. It's framed as a fundamental choice: comply with the highest court in the land or defy it. And that's the dramatic narrative this video is pushing. We've laid it all out for you. Now you can decide what to make of it. Side of the coin, the defense's main arguments, how the source tries to knock them down, and the big picture futures it lays out for all of us.
So the first big defense argument it highlights is that this is all just a political prosecution. The video's counterargument is basically this. It's not the prosecution that's unprecedented, it's the conduct that led to it. And to prove that, it points to testimony from fellow Republicans. The second argument it tackles is the idea that the Supreme Court is biased. And the source's rebuttal here is pretty straightforward. It just asks a question. If the court is so biased, then why did the 3 justices Trump himself appointed vote against him? It's a tough question to answer. And this brings us to the end, where the source lays out what it sees as 3 possible futures for America, depending on how this all shakes out. Option 1, accountability. The system works and a precedent is set that nobody is above the law. Option 2, the system fails. The cases get tossed, and the precedent is that if